Welcome back to NTV News First Edition. The fictional television show Only Murders in the Building pokes fun at the number of people who become highly engaged in true crime podcasts and TV shows. However, not just fictional characters seem to be obsessed these days. So why are so many of us watching these true crime shows, and could they potentially cause us harm? Well, here to discuss is Dr. Janine Hubbard with this week's Get Psyched. This is a great topic this week because, you know, we've been talking about it all day in the newsroom. A lot of people are watching true crime shows. They seem to be everywhere these days. There's more and more of them, and people are flocking to watch them. Why are we so interested in watching true crime?
Well, and it's interesting because it has been a great newsroom discussion today, for sure. We are fascinated by human behavior, and especially kind of the darker or kind of more forbidden or hidden side of human behavior. There's a reason psychology courses are so popular. People want to know about these things that maybe they're not encountering on a daily basis, but they want to be able to do it from the safety of their living room, from the safety of their couch and their laptop. So there is, and sometimes it's okay, my family doesn't seem so bad in comparison to, you know, some of the things I'm seeing here. We know that they're hugely popular, especially with women. There's one research hypothesis out there that suggests that on one level, whether it's conscious or not, women are watching it to learn tips about how to keep themselves safe, you know, how to avoid getting in some of the situations that have happened. There is also definitely the water cooler effect that can come along with a lot of this, right? It's something that people start talking about, and it becomes a bit of a shared experience for a lot of us. So, you know, there is definitely some appeal from a safe place. And I think that's part of the reason that we do look to some of these, for sure. And usually, if something is being produced, we have the end of the story, which means not only are you playing detective as you're going along, you know that there's some kind of satisfying conclusion. Often, you know, that the bad guy's going to get the comeuppance at the end of it in some way, shape, or form. So there is that kind of release of all the tension towards the end of the series or the end of the podcast.
Now, you know, we're all very careful to make sure that our children aren't watching programs that are rated for adults. But how do we know if a show that we're about to watch is actually right for us? I mean, what if we watch something and it kind of frightens us a bit?
Well, and again, that's where we also want to be mindful. Certainly, we do get concerned that sometimes topics, without you realizing it, may actually be a little triggering, especially for anyone who has perhaps been a victim of trauma or a survivor of a traumatic experience. So sometimes there are some websites that you can check out that kind of give you the heads up on that. Certainly, knowing your own preferences, knowing your own tolerances for some of these things, keeping in perspective. Remember, these are sensational stories. They are not everyday occurrences. And sometimes we need to kind of keep that perspective. So if that's all you're watching, it's very easy to start to, you know, cause distress, because we have something called the just world hypothesis, which is that, you know, bad things happen to bad people, good things happen to good people. Well, these really challenge a lot of those thoughts about the world, which is partly why we find it so fascinating, but also that can provide some real distress, especially if it's exposing you to topics that, you know, maybe you weren't aware of and you were just as happy being oblivious of. So knowing yourself a little bit, being mindful of when are you watching them. Are you watching them with company? Are you watching it by yourself right before bed? You know, kind of keeping an eye on things. And like I say, balancing it and putting in perspective. So enjoy the addiction if it's, you know, bringing you some comfort and release and some nice distraction. And if it's something that you're finding more problematic, remember there are also multiple genres. There are multiple different areas. There are, you know, the solving a murder. There are the cults. There are the family profiles. There are all kinds of different stories that are out there. And so finding the one that works for you without causing undue distress.
All right. Well, Dr. Hubbard, we have 20 seconds left. Do you have any final thoughts, 20 seconds or less?
Listen, I get sucked into them as much as anyone, and in some cases it helps me understand some of the news stories. I just watched one about someone who had been a very high-profile a character or individual in the news, so it helped me to understand some background. But take it in moderation, and remember the perspective that goes with it.
All right, Dr. Hubbard, I always have so much fun when you're in, no matter what the topic. I can't wait to find out what we're going to talk about next week. Thanks so
too.
much.